There you go. So let's talk about React State. So this morning I presented two different ways of solving the same problem. And the problem simply was to display a list of movies. For simplicity reasons for now, let me just keep a single movie. We may add the other two afterwards. All right. So if the only thing we need to do is to display the title, the year, some static data, to me, there is no point of doing that. I will clearly create a function because it's just simpler. Yeah? You don't have to remember to type render, what the hell extends the React component means, this.props. It just feels more natural from a JavaScript point of view. However, that strategy is not powerful enough in some particular scenarios. And I'm particularly talking about state handling. So the state is, how to explain that? A list of data, a bunch of data, private to the component, that whenever that data changes, the component has to re-render. Yeah, the component has to re-render. Based on what? Based on whatever. I will give you an example. Today, I'm going to add a button somewhere. So whenever I click on the button, I want to do something. What do I want to do? I don't know. Imagine that, yeah, I know. So you are building Netflix and you want to add a button to add a movie to your list, or watch later. You are navigating through Netflix or through Netflix, and you want to watch a movie, but you don't have time now, so you want to save it into a playlist, something like that. Yeah? So that's what I would like to do now. I got Megashark. It's a fantastic movie, but I don't have time now because I'm doing a workshop. So at least I would like to save it so then I can watch it easily later on today. All right. So whenever you want to do that, essentially you want to change the user interface, because when you click on the button, you want to add a text saying the movie has been saved into your list of favorites, or list of watch later, something like that. So you want to update the user interface. It's not a static application anymore. There is some user interaction. Cool. So whenever you do that, you need to create a state. And let's learn how to define a state in React. So to define a state, first of all, you have to bring the constructor back. You remember the constructor? I mean, if you don't remember the constructor, we have a problem, right? Because we covered that 25 minutes ago. So, but before we didn't do anything with the constructor. We just had a console log just to prove that there is a method called constructor. Do you remember what we had to add in the first line of the constructor? Super, correct. Yeah. Once again, just remember to add that. And now, how do we initialize the state? So to initialize the state, we have to type this.state. Yeah? This.state equals, and that could be whatever we want. This is a JavaScript variable. Yeah, JavaScript variable could be a number, string. Generally speaking, we create an object. Yeah? And that object will hold all the dynamic information of your component. In my particular case, the only thing I want to know is whether that movie has been saved into my favorite list or not. It's a Boolean, true or false. Yeah, true or false. So let me create a variable called is favorite, something like that. That's an object. Yeah? You remember objects, curly brace, the key is favorite, and the value is favorite false. So by default, whenever there is a new release, that's not on my favorite list, right? I had to explicitly click on the sexy button to save it. All right, so now let's add a button. Save to favorite. Favorite, I think, right? Something like that. So that's not ready yet, but let's see how it looks like for the time being on the user interface. It's a bit small, but yeah, the button is here, right? I mean, if I click on the button, Nothing happens yet, but hey, at least the button is there. Great. So let's learn how to trigger an action whenever the user hits the button. You can add an attribute called onClick. If you've done a bit of HTML, you know that in HTML there is something called onClick as well. But be careful, guys. OnClick has capital C. You see, onClick in plain JavaScript, if you get used to that, it's like that with small c. But in React, it's capital C. Don't worry about these details. If you do it wrong, React will complain. Hey, you type onClick in lower C. Are you sure you don't want to talk about onClick with capital C? Yes. All right, and now that's one of the tricky parts of React. Look, equals, curly brace, and now look at the syntax. Look at the syntax to bind with the button. Whenever I click on the button, it will execute a function. Now I can do whatever I want. So what's the action I want to trigger when a user clicks on the button? For now, let's show a message. Clicked. Yeah, look at the syntax. You have to get used to that. If you go to Google, you will find 4 to 5 different ways of solving the same problem. I don't want to mess around with all the different alternatives. The reason why I'm showing this one is because to me is arguably the simplest one. Yeah, but you may find different ways of dealing with the same problem. So now, if I click on the button, you see, pop, that's good, right? That means I managed to capture the click event. But obviously, I don't want to do that in reality. I want to change that Boolean from false to true. So we have to bind with a new function. Let me create a function here called toggle favorite. And look at the syntax. You see? This morning we presented some out of the box, some built-in functions. The constructor, render, component mount. But in reality, with React or with JavaScript, you can create custom new functions. Yeah? So once you create a function like that, then you can do whatever you want. You can do your stuff here. How do we call that function whenever we click on this button? Well, we have to call the function like that. Let's see what happens if we run this exercise. Oh, toggle favorite is not defined. In other words, React doesn't really understand what toggle favorite function means. And you may be thinking, hey, wait a minute, it's here. How is that possible? Do you remember, guys, this morning what I told you that props dot didn't work on a stateful component? Do you remember what we had to add here? Add the this prefix, right? That's the same thing. Whenever you create a class, you have to add this dot, this dot, this dot all the time. So if you want to access a function called toggle favorite, this dot toggle favorite. To prove it works, let me add an alert here. Hello from toggle favorite. Let's see if our application managed to display the message. The error is gone, that's a good thing. And now, if I click here, there you go, hello from the toggle favorite. So it's definitely working. You know, I'm narrowing the issue. I already managed to bind, to connect my button with a function. So now, let's change the variable is favorite. So, first of all, how do we want to give feedback to the user? Can we, for instance, display a message like, is the movie add it to the list or not, or we could even change the color of the button. I mean, from a UX point of view, you know, there are different ways of telling your users whether a movie is part of a list of favorites or not. Let's keep it simple for now. I'm going to add a new div saying, is the movie on favorites, something like that. Can anyone tell me how do I display that value here? This dot state dot, what else, Anita? What do you think, guys? Kaini is suggesting to add the curly brace. Let's see what happened without the curly brace. Let me refresh. Is the movie on favorite? This is the state of this favorite. So, Fish, do you remember what do we have to add here to solve the problem? Anyone can help Fish here? Correct. Look, Fish, here, to display the year of the movie, we had to surround the variable with curly brace. So that's the same thing again. That's a static text. I don't care about that. But the variable is here, right? That's the dynamic bit of my component. So then let's surround it with curly brace. Let's try again. So now you get nothing. Is the movie on favorite? You get nothing. Why do we get nothing? That's not obvious, to be honest. What type of data is favorite is? It's a Boolean. It's a Boolean. React doesn't really like to display Booleans, like true or false. It doesn't really like that. However, there are different approaches we can take here. For instance, let's simplify the problem a bit. Let's play with the strings. Let's see if React is able to display that string. Here we go. You see? If my default state is a string, React can easily display it. So, if I click on the button, I mean, nothing happens yet, because we never tried to change the value. It's statically. So far, having a stateful component, having a class, feels still stupid, because the user interface is completely static. But I want to change that text. As soon as I manage to change the text, then having a stateful component will work. So, can anybody tell me how will you change that variable? So can I do that? This dot state dot is favorite. Yes, happy face. Why not? Say it again?
You have to put the logic where to change it from node to yes.
All right, fair enough. Yeah, that's a good point. I agree. So that, you see, that's the typical discussion that you have to bring to the table on a board challenge. So Florian is suggesting, A, if the method is called toggle, toggle is like a switch, like the lights.
Yeah.
So if you change it to yes, imagine that you move to a new house and the electrician is fixing some issues, and then it changed the lighting of your bedroom. But then he said, hey, wait a minute. Yeah, the lights are off. But when you switch them on, you can never switch them off, right? Which is bullshit. So that's essentially what we are doing here. We're switching, we are able to put the movie on the favorite list, but we cannot undo the action, which doesn't make sense. But anyway, for simplicity reasons, let's do that. Eh? For semantics, set favorite, or if you want, add to favorites, something like that. All right, so will this work? Do you think that if now I click on the button, I will essentially get the message like, yes, the movie is on favorite? No? Andrea, why not?
Because it has to already render the
So Andrea said that even if we do that, the component won't re-render. In other words, let's go back to the breakpoints and make sure whoever got point this morning, I think it was Florine and someone else, please remember, otherwise I will forget to add it to the charts. All right, so back to sources. I mean, will the breakpoints work this time? What do you think, guys? I'm strongly pessimistic about that, but once again, let's be polite. Let's just refresh the page and see if it works. Oh, incredible. Now Chrome decided to work again. Fantastic. All right, so I'm going to add some breakpoints. Let me try to find the best way of doing this. So look, I got a breakpoint on line number 8. So you know that it goes first. I mean, you know that already, right? I got a breakpoint on line number 12 and on line number 16. You see the 3 breakpoints? So my plan is, look at the action I will take. I'm going to refresh the page. After refreshing the page, what will be the execution order? Who wants to participate, apart from Florian, who already got some good points today? Alex? I'm just going to refresh the page. I'm not going to interact with the app. 8?
16.
8 and 16. Andrea agrees with you.
Don't know, I'm guessing.
Any different opinion? Anyone has a different approach? No means you agree with Alex or you don't know what we are talking about.
I'd go for 8, 16, 12, but 12 isn't correct.
So, all right, Camila suggests 8, 16, 12.
Can I see what's inside the render?
Inside the render, it doesn't really matter what you have inside the render. Yeah?
Because only if this function is called,
I'm just going to refresh the page. I'm not going to click anywhere. Just refresh the page.
then it's only 8 and 16.
So Alex and Anita and Kaini. You agree with? You agree with Alex. I see many women here, apart from Alex. So
I'm gonna go with Camila.
all right, cool. So Octavian, Andrea.
Thinking.
Thank you. What?
I'm thinking.
Ah, you're thinking. Okay, Yiyun agrees with Alex. I'm waiting for Octavian, Andrea, Fish, and I think that's it, right?
I'm not there.
11? What do you mean 11?
No, I'm not there.
Ah.
I'm on the list.
Ah, you are not the list, Andrea. Are you? No, you are not. That's why I said, right? Octavian, Andrea.
I said 8, 16.
Ah, you said X16. Sorry, I didn't. Yeah, sorry. You are right. You were the first one, actually. Yeah, sorry. You are right. Octavian, Fish.
I'm guessing
But you're guessing that because everybody said that?
because constructor environment seems to be
Okay. So do you think Fish line number 12 will run at all if I simply refresh the page?
I don't see how it's going to run.
Okay. And you, Octavian, what do you think?
I don't know.
You don't know. All right. So let's figure out.
Hang on, oh no, I can't change.
No, you can't change. Right. You got some extra seconds because now Chrome stopped working. So it worked only once, right? But I'm going to be aggressive straight away. As you know, debugger, semicolon, on the constructor, and it works. Yeah. I had to add the breakpoints again. That's not great, but anyway, it will work this time. Look, just by refreshing the page, I mean, you need to add one number, right? Because everything has been moved down. So instead of 816 will be 917, 917, 13, but that's the same. So constructor, fine, render, and that's it. In other words, that really doesn't make sense, Camila and Chuck. It will call add favorite if I press the button. Yeah? Which makes sense. Let's see if that's right. Look. Let me press the button. What is my button, by the way? Oh, sorry. I think it's because it's mobile. It's a bit weird, right? Let me press here. Oh. Should work, guys. Let me see if I did something wrong. Yeah. So it looks like you need to add multiple debuggers. You see? I'm 90% sure I did it right. Add the favorites. That's right. So I think Chrome is already, messing around.
Crashing for the name.
Yeah. So let me try again. And now, if my assumption is right, it will stop on debugger. Here you go. Yeah, it was right. So, ignoring all the complexity of dealing with a horrible browser these days, yeah, you can see now it finally, once I click on the button, and only after clicking on the button, it called add to my favorite list. Yeah. So that's the way it works. However, did it work? Was the movie added to my favorite list or not? No, it doesn't look good, right? Why? Was the component re-rendered? If we want to change the user interface, we have to re-render. But let me play again. You stop here. But that's it. It never re-renders. If you don't fully trust me, let me add another debugger. Yeah. So now we have a explicit stop on each method. So there are no excuses. So this is just the loading. You can ignore that. And now that's the main thing. If I click on Save Favorite, it will stop on line number 14 or 13. Doesn't really matter. And will it stop on line number 18? No, never happens. That's why it doesn't work. Even if we change our data model, even if we change our state, React doesn't care. React doesn't re-render. And that's a problem, because we really want to re-render. We want to change from no to yes. So how do we tell React, hey, in reality, I want to re-render? That's not the way it works. The way it works is by typing, look at the syntax, this dot set state. It's a method, parentheses. And inside of the parentheses, we provide an object with a property or properties that we want to change. Which property we want to change? Is favorite, correct? And what's the value of the new property? Yes, correct. That's the right way of forcing React to re-render your user interface. So now the question is, if I, let me finish that execution. So let me refresh the page. Here you go. I think it's correct now. Debugger, that's it. So, look, line number 13, line number 11, and line number 8. You see? 8, 13, and 19. I'm going to press the button. What's the execution order? Anybody apart from Alex and Florin? I'm going to press the Save to Favorite button. That's the only thing I'm going to do. So, 19, 8, and 11. Is 19 is 13, yes. So you said 19, 8, and 13.
Yeah, you're gonna click the button.
Yes, I'm going to click the button. 19, 8, and 13. I press once, correct. I'm going to press once, yeah. What do you think, guys? Is that right or wrong? Wait. Sorry, let me. So, if you think differently, now is, I think, your choice. You have the opportunity to get.
Guessing again.
So, Camila,
8, 19, then 13,
8, 19, 13,
and I think 19.
19 again. How many times? 7? No, only once. Cool. All right.
Just to clarify, only when you
I'm only going to press the button. I'm not going to refresh the page. I'm only going to press the button.
Ah, you're gonna.
Yeah. I say that like 3 times.
Okay.
Right? Who else?
13,
Anita,
13,
13,
and only 13.
only 13. All right? Anybody else? Chuck?
13, 19.
How do you type Chuck? Is Chuck
CHUCK.
like that?
You can do it that way, yeah.
Or CK?
That will be the American version. Yeah.
Cool. So Chuck said again?
So 13
13
and then 19.
and then 19. All right? If you agree with any of these players, yes, tell me as well. Eh? So Ji-yoon agrees with Chuck. Who else?
I think 8 to 19.
So Fish said again?
Can I go with this?
8 and 19
8, 19, 13.
and 13. Okay? All right.
On the back of my bar, my back shot,
So Rochelle agrees with Camila.
No, because we're not refreshing.
Right. But before answering the problem, I will give the chance to someone who is wrong to prove why he or she is wrong. Yeah? You don't get any points, but at least you get the credit from the audience. All right, so I'm missing some people here, right? What is Andrea, Octavian?
I'm going to Chuck.
No, you cannot participate.
Well,
You are an influencer because you got some points.
sorry, Chuck.
So,
I'm with you in spirit.
Thanks, man.
so Octavian, Andrea, any thoughts?
Can I proceed? I don't understand. Can I participate?
You get some points before?
Yeah.
Why? No, but you came second, right? You participate after Alex. I
No,
think.
he
No?
did one.
Ah, you were first. Ah, you're right. Sorry, you're right.
I don't know what's happening.
No. Sorry, Andrea. That's my fault. Yes. So I will easily forget these things, guys. I have to apologize. You cannot participate. You are right. But Octavian can participate.
Yeah, I was thinking Chuck as well.
All right. So where is Chuck? Here we go. I think that's it, right? I'm not missing anybody. All right. So if you think you are wrong, can you argue that and what's the right solution and why? So Camila, for instance.
Yeah, I think 8's not an open constructor because we're just pressing the button. So we're just changing the state.
That's correct, Camila. The constructor only runs once. Only once. It doesn't really matter what happened with the component afterward. Only once. Is where you initialize the component. Based on that, anybody reporting 8 is wrong. Kaini, wrong. Fish, wrong.
So can you repeat what you just said?
Second?
Can you repeat what you just said?
Yeah, so the constructor method only runs once. Only runs when you refresh the page, let's say. If you interact with the component, clicking on a button, changing an input, whatever, it doesn't rerun, only runs once. Yeah? So now it's in between Camila, Rochelle, Anita, Chuck, Ji-yoon, Octavian. Out of that list, does any of you want to change your mind?
I want to check what's
So-
inside the render.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Okay, because when we click the add to
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. Then I'll show you. Yeah.
After it gets called, it comes back to 13. No, sorry, 19.
So that means that you think you're wrong.
So
So
maybe 13 and 19.
so you are joining Chuck, Yun, and Octavian, right?
Yeah.
Anybody else out of this list of 6 warriors wants to join the other team?
Can I change mine to 1913?
1913. Oh, but that's a new option.
Yeah.
That's a new option. All right. So let's add that. Rochelle is joining the independent party. And Camila, you already joined the other team, right? So that.
No, that was wrong. The A was wrong.
So which team you join, Camila?
I'll go with Rochelle.
You went with Rochelle.
Yeah.
But yes, is because of psychological support? Or all right. So in other words, you see, we are reducing the number of options. Is it 13 and 19, or is it 19 and 13? Yeah? That's the problem. So clearly the right option is 13 and 19. And the reason is, first of all, we press the button. When we press the button, we call the function. And then, as a side effect of changing the state, React will automatically call the render function again. Let's try that. See? First of all, we call the favorites, and just because we are calling set state, React will re-render only once. Yeah? And now, if we evaluate the state, you remember what we did before, this, not props, state should be somewhere, here you go. You see? His favorite, yes. So React already changed the data model. So if I finish the execution of my script, look at the message. Is this movie on favorite? Yes. So now, let's do it again. Let me get rid of the debugger, yeah? Let's just run it end to end, just to see the result. So let me refresh, give me 5 seconds. Sorry, I need to refresh. Sometimes Chrome goes a bit crazy, as you know already. All right, so because I refreshed, is my favorite? No. Yes. Okay. That's why you need a stateful component, because you had to create state. Any questions?
So if you refresh before pressing the button, it will run the constructor first, right? And then
Yes.
if you press the button, it will run the add to favorites.
That's correct.
Function, and then it will render.
That's absolutely right, Octavian. Yeah, that's the flow. Yeah, correct. Yep. Yep.
Not sure if it's very silly. Is the once we click the button, the set state is called.
Yep.
And you said the side effect of calling the set state function is the render function will be.
That's
invoked.
correct. Yeah, that's
Is
correct.
it because we invoke the add to favorites from render, or
It doesn't really matter. Every time you call set state, that's a way to tell React, please re-render, please re-render. It doesn't really matter where it comes from. Yeah. So my last question of the day. What if we want to go back? I mean, because that's a bit silly, right? You are, navigating through the database, and then you come across Transformers 2, and by accident you add it to favorites, but you don't like the movie, so you want to remove it from favorites, but at the moment, you are trapped forever. So how do we revert the action? Well, first of all, let's rename the method. Yeah? Add to favorite means let's add it. So let's call it, I don't know, toggle or switch. I don't know. Yeah? Just think about the semantics. I'm sure you are much better than me on that. Switch favorite. So now, Can you figure out how to change from yes to no, vice versa?
Ternary operator.
Okay, before going into the ternary operator, let's do an if-else. So, if, do something, else, So, if what? What's the condition? This dot state dot is favorite what?
I don't think we need to say
Equal. How many equals? 2, 3, 4. Why 3? Correct. Remember, always use triple equals. Yeah. Equals what? And then what? Yes. Like that.
Fourth.
With clause like that.
No, inside the quotes with an exclamation.
So if it's yes, then what do we do here?
With exclamation.
Oops. Yeah. Then what? What do we do here?
Yes, has to be with a smiley face.
Yeah, it's a smiley face.
No, it's not. You look at the wrong one. Set
Oh,
state.
okay.
That's
So what do we do, guys? If the state is yes, set state like that.
No, this dot.
This, no, you don't have to return anything here. You just want to change the state, Rochelle. Set the state, and then what? What's the state here?
It will be no. In the object, open curly braces. No, like this.
Guys, I know you know how to do it, but I want you to be crystal clear with your instructions.
Okay.
Yeah? So let's try to, the way you explain that is, you call a function called this.setState, then you invoke it, so you use parentheses, and then you pass an object as the argument. The key of the object does a test alarm, unless you start smelling something wrong. The key of the variable is favorite. And the value associated to the variable is a string represented by the word no with exclamation mark. And that's the way you provide instructions. If you're doing pair programming, generally speaking, one person is talking and the other one is writing. Yeah, so it's very important to be precise with instructions. All right, and then else, what?
Copy paste that line.
Anybody apart from Anita has any idea about what to do here?
What did you say?
Say it again?
What did you say? What did you say?
I said this set state is favorite.
Am I speaking Chinese? So no one can really give me an answer about. Say it again, Alex.
Everything inside the parentheses next to if, I've copy and paste that.
Copy and paste which line?
Where you've got on line 14, if everything inside the parentheses.
You want me to copy that and paste it here?
And then, wait, but no, sorry, I take that back. This dot set state,
Uh-huh. So this dot set state.
parentheses, pass through an object, with the key is favorite, and the value is a string with yes exclamation mark inside.
Yeah, that's a good way of telling me what to do. Yeah? You get the point, right?
This
So
is
so-
favorite.
is favorite, yeah, thank you. So you see, if is favorite is yes, that means I want to remove it. Yeah? So you remove it. If otherwise, then I want to add it. So let's see if that works. No, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Yeah? That's exactly what we wanted to do. So that clearly works fine. Any questions? If I were you, I will refactor that a bit. I'm not a big fan because, you know, that line is a bit complicated. Yeah? So another alternative, and then just choose your favorite style. You know there are multiple ways of coding, so you need to be comfortable with the style. I will create a variable called isFavorite, and then I will use the ternary operator. So do you know the ternary operator? You already came across that? So the ternary operator means, let me rephrase that. Imagine that we have a function, if age greater than 18, can I buy cigarettes equals true. Else, can I buy cigarettes equals false. Yeah? Imagine that we are trying to build something like that. So whenever you got that structure, which is fairly basic, if condition is met, do something, else do something else, you can refactor that in the following way. Can I buy cigarettes equals the condition, age greater than 18, then true or false. What do you think? True, right? If I'm well, greater or equal, doesn't really matter, right? If I'm at least 18 years old, I can buy cigarettes. Else, false. This line is the same as these 5 lines. I hope you agree with me, even though if it's the first time you come across that, it takes a while to understand it. Once you get used to it, it's simpler, it's easier, yeah? So once again, is that a wrong thing? Is that a bad thing? Not at all. If you feel comfortable, if you find it more readable, that's up to you. Yeah? Never argue, this is one line, it's more optimum, the machine will process it faster. No, that's bullshit. Yeah? Just make sure you are comfortable with what you write. So, based on that, can anybody tell me how do I rewrite this expression? So I want to create a variable isFavorite. Can you tell me how do I set the value? This dot state dot isFavorite. What else? Semicolon.
Then next we need to write the ternary.
No, sorry. Maybe the question wasn't clear enough. I want to specify, I want to create a variable isFavorite. Yeah? Why? Because then isFavorite, whatever. I don't really care. And once I got the variable, I want to do that. This dot set state. See what I'm trying to do? I'm trying to solve that problem in 2 lines. First of all, please create a variable that will have the value yes or no. And once you have that variable, that value, then you change the state only once. I find that syntax a bit easier than that one. But once again, you don't have to trust me here. If you like this coding style, go for it. And even if you don't like my coding style, as I mentioned many times, it's great, it's very healthy to get used to different coding styles, because that you will become a more resilient developer. So, what's the condition? isFavorite equals what, Fish? True, like that? Question mark, and then what? Semicolon? Colon? Yeah? And then semicolon? Colon false, semicolon. Like that? Yeah, so you got the idea of how to write a ternary, but there are a few problems here. First of all, the variable isFavorite, it doesn't exist yet. We are creating it here. So where are we hosting that information? This.state.isFavorite. This is our state. Yeah? That's the first thing. And also, equals true. No, we don't have any Boolean. What we have is a string. So what's the condition? Exactly fish. But something like that? Fish? What do you think? Are you sure? How many equal symbols do we have? Only one, right? That's wrong. So whenever we want to compare, we put 3 symbols. If this.state.favorite is yes, then what value do we want to return here? No, that's correct. And then else, that's still wrong, right? Yes, correct. You see the idea? If the value is yes, then change it to no. Else, that means it was no, then change it to yes. Okay, it's a bit confusing, but you know, that's pretty much it. So let's see if it works, first of all. It doesn't work because I forgot to delete my silly example. Yeah? So if I refresh, see, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes. Yeah? So then you see 2 different flavors of the same algorithm. Yes, pick the one that you feel more comfortable. A very last thing. In modern JavaScript, as we will see over the next weeks, you can do something very sexy, which is called object destructuring. That's a new technique in JavaScript. It's very powerful. And the way it works is, you see, we got each favorite as the key of my object. But the value is the same. You see, the key and the values are the same. You agree with me? Eventually here there will be yes or no or whatever. But the thing is, visually speaking, these 2 tokens are the same. Whenever that happens, in modern JavaScript, you can do that. Look at how cool this is. That's it. This is what we call, in that particular case, object shorthand. We are deleting the column and the value because it's redundant. Whenever the key and the value are the same, you can delete the value. Once again, just as an idea, don't worry about that. We'll go through this aspect in the next weeks. But at least that will start something familiar. And to me, that's pretty much it. Do you have any questions? That's not necessarily easy, I have to admit, but that's extremely important. So if I were you, what I will do today or tomorrow is watch the workshop again, try to replicate the same thing, like if you were presenting the workshop, yeah, just to prove that you really understood that. Anything else? No? Cool, that was it. Thank you guys.